When you, I mean, the simple story is you don't start fast. And then you have a 5-turnover game to none. You don't come close to matching explosive plays. You have a couple of pretty bad penalties early, and then we turned it over at the most inopportune times, going in and coming out. And when you do that, you're going to lose football games. I take full responsibility, I do. Turnovers and circumstances, the way our team played, that's got to fall on the head coach, and we've got to be all in offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game for us to be our best. It's 2 games in. It's 2020. There's 10 conference games. Nobody's going to run from the hard work. We have to stay together at the toughest of times. That's what all families do. And I like these young men. I like this team. I expect them to respond, but I have to help them more. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Coach, thank you. We'll use a hand raise feature again like we have before, and we'll start with Jim Sumner. Jim, go ahead.
Coach, when you have a game like that where the mistakes kind of cascade, is there a theme? Do you see a thread? Is there one thing that's going wrong, or is you say kind of independent?
Well, I think, you know, when you're in a circumstance where momentum and energy, you own all of it. When you're playing in a game in 2020, the team has to own that. The coaching staff has to own that. And I think one of the things that hit me throughout was not being able to generate explosive plays to match theirs. Explosive plays, big plays, ignite players. So that's in addition, obviously, to the turnovers and a couple of inopportune penalties that should be avoided. That's how it all comes together for Boston College, a road team. Now, let's not take anything away from them. Jeff Hafley has done a great job already. We weren't sure what they were going to do, but we knew they would be well coached, and they were. So I take nothing away from them, but we have to be better than where and what we were.
We'll go to Bridget Condon next, and then JV Ricks. Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, you kind of mentioned this on 2020, the season. You know, it's just going to take all that effort, and there's not a lot of time to make some of those fixes. For you guys now 0-2 in the season, what can you do, and what will you do in this next week to get ready for, you know, next Saturday?
Yeah, well, you certainly have to prioritize what you're doing on the practice field anyway. It's under unique conditions and circumstances. You start with personnel always, making sure everything's happening with what you want from a personnel standpoint, and that you're doing the right things that best suit your personnel in all 3 phases. And then you put a practice plan together, and the only way you get better at football are quality repetition after repetition. Practice, I tell you what it does, it makes permanent. If you practice really well and you have a prioritized list of what you got to do, you can improve much quicker than people think in this game.
JV, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking out the time. I got a 2-part question for you. Do you feel like your offense took a step back from the progression that you felt like you might have been having from fall camp through the first game to now? And the second part of that question is, how much of a concern is your special teams, especially your kicking game? I believe you have 2 freshman kickers, and they didn't have their best performance today. So how much of a concern is that for you moving forward?
Well, you hit a lot of concerns, and they're certainly there. We really had some good performance in camp that would have indicated an offense that can be consistent, and we still can be. I've got to look at myself. I've got to look at what we're calling. I've got to look at, you know, every little thing we're doing there. No time to punch a panic button, but you have to respond. Players expect some form of response to put our offense back on track, to do things that we believe in, all of us, players, coaches. A belief system is critical in offensive football. From a specialist standpoint, Porter and Charlie are extremely talented. They're great young people. I have extreme confidence in both of them. I want to see us across the board in the kicking game be better in our return game. You know, everybody participates in the kicking game, not just the specialists. So we got to snap, we got to hold, we got to kick. We've got to do everything we can in the punt game. We got to be better in the kickoff return game. The punt return game, I think we've got a good start, but there's a lot of getting better to do in all three phases right now. We got to tackle better on defense. No question that some of the explosive plays we couldn't get a quarterback on the ground. Little things along those lines that we can work on the practice field, and we'll work on them and get better.
Thank you. We have 4 questions in queue. We'll take those 4. Evan first, then Max, Steve, and C. Alexander. So, Matt, go ahead.
You mentioned the lack of explosive plays, and someone who was expected to produce some of those, explosive plays on offense this year was Jalen Calhoun. He was limited to 1 catch for 3 yards today. So could you sort of talk about how he was limited on offense and how you hope to get him more involved in the future?
Yeah, they played a lot more zone, played a little differently than what we anticipated. They really kind of put 2 bullets into him a lot. At times, even playing zone, they made his releases difficult. They did a good job. But when they're doing or spending that much time somewhere, you got to be productive otherwise. So tough day. It happens. You don't have a game, going into this game to study. So that's hard on the players. And we're going to face the same thing next week. We got to be mentally tougher than that. So we've got to go in with a great plan, and it's got to be about Duke. It's not about BC. It's not about Virginia. We got to trust who we are and what we do.
Max, go ahead.
Coach, offense seemed to be able to move the ball into the red zone multiple times during the game, but for some reason just it would stall or a turnover would occur. What do you see as the reason for that?
Well, we had the same thing a week ago, and to finish drives, we've got to put our playmakers in position. The first thing you look at is what kind of position are you putting your playmakers. When the field gets smaller, it's almost like playing playground or backyard football. You got to make sure that you get your best playmakers in a position to score touchdowns. If you can't run it in, the field's smaller, you got to really have some quality opportunities in the passing game, and we didn't get those done. And, of course, when you turn it over, doesn't matter what you call, and we've got to do a better job of finishing drives by taking care of the ball and by putting our people in position to score touchdowns.
We have time for 2 more questions. We'll go to Steve.
I was just wondering what you thought of Phil Dracovic, the Boston College quarterback. I guess he made his BC debut. How did you feel about the way he did and what he was able to do?
I thought he played terrific from the sideline. He made a couple of throws that you don't have answers for. He scrambled well. He extended plays well. He made a couple of cross-field throws to the tight end that were extremely accurate. So an outstanding, big, strong football player that's got some mobility. I think he will have an outstanding year from what we saw today.
Last question, Chip Alexander, go ahead.
Coach, you came out of the Notre Dame game feeling pretty good about your quarterback play. How did you feel like Chase handled things today? And at the same time, you're handling the play calling for the first time in a while. How do you feel like you've done in that role these last 2 games?
Yeah, I think we have to, first of all, address myself, and I really ask our coaches to be very critical in anything they feel or see. You kind of got to get in a rhythm. You have to feel comfortable with it. I felt good for the most part in South Bend. Today, again, with some of the things we worked on all week long, kind of had to push to the side. You got to respond better. You have to adjust and change on the run better. I've got to get better. I'm just plain and simple, and we can and will. And then we have to take care of the ball. Chase, I got to put him in better positions. I think the temptation that he's got to resist is trying to force plays. You can make plays, and he's a playmaker, but you can't force plays, and we got to do a better job of having our receivers and our quarterback on the same page to where they are in areas we expect. We get a lot of work against man coverage, against our own defense, not near as much as we get with zone. It's hard to simulate it with young players playing against you, and I don't think we did a great enough job of that simulation to help him. We will get better offensively across the board, and no question, he's got a lot of ability. He's tough. He makes plays for us, but he's got to be on that circumstance, that bubble, of when you know you got to take care of the ball. You can't force a play.